The night stretched endlessly, heavy with fog and the hum of distant traffic. In a forgotten alley behind the old bus station, a homeless woman named Marla crouched beside a dented metal barrel, coaxing a small flame to life. The orange light flickered against the cracked walls, painting her weary face in shades of gold and shadow. Her hands, rough and reddened by cold, trembled as she rubbed them together for warmth. She hadn't slept properly in days, the pavement was hard, and the noise of the city was never kind to those without a roof. She looked up at the sky, where only one faint star managed to pierce through the haze. Once, nights like these had been different. She had lived in an apartment not far from here, worked as a caretaker in a nursing home, and spent evenings reading stories to her little niece. But that life had drifted away slowly, one bad turn, one wrong decision, and finally, the street had become her only home. Still, even in her loneliness, Marla never lost her gentle heart. From across the street, she could see the glow of windows in an old apartment building. Inside, she imagined families gathered for dinner, the smell of food filling warm kitchens, laughter echoing off walls. The image made her chest ache, not with jealousy, but with longing for something she once understood so well, belonging. A gust of wind blew, scattering a few old newspapers. Marla pulled her thin coat tighter, preparing to settle in for the night, when a strange noise reached her ears, a faint thump, then the cry of a child. At first, she thought she imagined it, but then came the unmistakable pop and hiss of fire. She turned her head sharply. Smoke was beginning to curl out of a second-floor window of the apartment building. Within seconds, the glow behind the glass turned from soft gold to furious orange. Marla froze, her mind racing. No one else seemed to notice. The street was empty, the night too quiet. Then she heard it again, a small, terrified scream. Without another thought, Marla grabbed her threadbare scarf and wrapped it around her face. Her body moved before her fear could stop her. Barefoot and trembling, she ran across the street toward the burning building, her heart pounding louder than the crackle of flames. For the first time in years, she felt something powerful surge inside her, purpose. Inside the building, chaos had already begun to spread. The hallway was dim and filled with a dense, gray haze that stung Marla's eyes and clawed at her throat. She coughed, pulling her scarf tighter around her face as she squinted through the smoke. The air was thick with the smell of burning plastic and wood, and every step forward felt like walking through a nightmare. She could hear the fire roaring somewhere above, a hungry, cracking sound that made the walls tremble. "Hello," she called, her voice hoarse. "Is anyone there?" No answer, only the faint echo of her own words. Then, through the din, came a tiny sound, a child's sob. It was soft, muffled, but unmistakable. Marla followed it, moving quickly despite her fear. Her boots, 2 sizes too big, slipped on the ash-covered floor, but she caught herself against the wall and kept going. The crying grew louder as she neared a door that was slightly ajar. She pushed it open and was hit by a wave of heat so strong it nearly drove her back. Flames danced up the wallpaper, licking at the ceiling. In the corner of the small living room, beneath a table, a little boy was curled up, clutching a stuffed bear so tightly that his knuckles had turned white. His cheeks were streaked with soot and tears. "It's okay, sweetheart," Marla said softly, crouching low. "I'm here to help you. We need to go now." The boy stared at her, eyes wide with fear. "I want my mom," he whimpered. "She'll be outside waiting for you," Marla lied gently, reaching out her hand. "But we have to move fast." He hesitated for just a moment, then slowly crawled toward her. Marla wrapped him in a blanket that had fallen from the couch, shielding his face from the smoke. She lifted him into her arms. He was lighter than she expected, trembling like a leaf. The fire was spreading fast now, devouring the furniture, snapping at their heels. Marla's lungs burned with every breath. She could barely see the exit through the swirling gray fog. "Hold on tight," she whispered. The boy buried his face against her shoulder, sobbing quietly. Just as they reached the stairwell, a loud crack split the air, the ceiling above them began to collapse. Marla ducked, shielding the child with her body as debris rained down. Pain shot through her shoulder, but she didn't stop. Driven by pure instinct, she ran down the stairs 2 at a time, her heart hammering wildly. Finally, the cool rush of night air hit her face as they burst through the front door. Outside, people were shouting, sirens wailed in the distance, and Marla fell to her knees on the pavement, still holding the boy close. His small arms wrapped around her neck, clinging to her as if she were his only anchor in the world. "It's okay," she whispered through tears, brushing soot from his hair. "You're safe now, you're safe." The night air was cold and sharp, but to Marla, it felt like the sweetest thing she had ever breathed. She knelt on the cracked pavement, cradling the boy in her arms as smoke and sparks billowed from the burning building behind them. People were beginning to gather, neighbors, passers-by, even a few who had been drawn by the sirens. Within minutes, firefighters rushed in, shouting orders as they unrolled heavy hoses and aimed them at the blazing windows. A paramedic hurried over and knelt beside Marla. "Ma'am, let me take him," he said gently, reaching for the child. The boy clung tighter to her, his tiny hands gripping her coat. Marla smiled weakly through soot-streaked cheeks. "It's okay, sweetheart," she whispered, easing him into the medic's arms. The child looked at her, eyes wide with confusion and fear. "Will I see you again?" he asked in a small, trembling voice. Marla swallowed hard. "You'll be just fine now," she said softly, brushing his hair back. "Be brave for me, okay?" As the paramedic carried him to the ambulance, the crowd broke into murmurs. Some people pointed toward Marla, whispering in disbelief. She was covered in soot, her coat torn and singed at the edges. Her hair was tangled, her face blackened by smoke, but her eyes, those tired, kind eyes, were calm and full of quiet strength. "Who is she?" someone asked. "She came out of nowhere," another replied. "She just ran in there and saved that boy." Marla tried to stand, but her knees wobbled beneath her. A firefighter approached, offering his hand. "You're lucky to be alive, ma'am," he said, his tone filled with respect. "You should let the medics check you out." She shook her head faintly. "No, I'm fine," she rasped, still coughing. "The boy needed help, that's all." "You're a hero," he said, but Marla gave a tired smile. "Heroes have homes," she murmured. "I just did what anyone should do." Before anyone could stop her, she turned and began to walk away. The flashing lights illuminated her silhouette as she disappeared down the street, a thin figure swallowed by the fog. No one even knew her last name. By morning, the story was everywhere. Homeless woman saves child from burning building. News anchors spoke her name, Marla, like it belonged to a legend. Social media overflowed with gratitude and disbelief. The mayor called her a symbol of courage. But even as the whole city searched for her, she had vanished into the quiet corners of the world she came from. In an alley not far away, Marla sat alone beside another small fire, the orange glow flickering across her weary face. She watched the sunrise paint the sky in gold and pink, and for the first time in years, she smiled, not out of pride, but from a deep, peaceful sense of purpose. For one brief, burning moment, she had mattered again. Morning light spread slowly over the city, washing the streets in a pale gold. The fire was out, leaving behind a blackened shell of brick and ash where the apartment building once stood. The smell of smoke still hung heavy in the air as firefighters packed up their hoses and investigators took notes. News vans lined the curb, their cameras flashing, reporters speaking into microphones about the mysterious homeless woman who saved a child from certain death. An hour later, a sleek black car glided to a stop near the ruins. The door opened, and Michael Turner stepped out, a man known to every business magazine in the country. His expensive wool coat couldn't hide the tremor in his hands. His usually composed face was pale, his eyes rimmed red from sleeplessness. The moment he saw the burned building, something in him seemed to shatter. His young son, Ethan, had been rescued only hours before. The doctors said he would recover fully, though shaken and scared. But Michael couldn't shake one thought: who saved him? He approached a firefighter still working the scene. "You were here last night?" Michael asked, his voice low but urgent. "Yes, sir," the man replied, recognizing him immediately. "We pulled your boy out of the ambulance. He's lucky to be alive, thanks to her." Her. Michael's eyes sharpened. The woman who carried him out. Thin, mid-40s maybe. Looked homeless, covered in soot. Saved him before we even got here. Michael glanced around as if expecting her to appear from the smoke itself. "Where is she now?" The firefighter shook his head. No one knows. She refused help, walked away before we could even get her name. Michael turned toward his assistant, who had been quietly waiting by the car. Find her, he said firmly. Every shelter, every station, every corner of this city. I don't care what it takes or what it costs. I need to find that woman. As the team scattered to follow his order, Michael remained still, staring at the charred windows above. The weight of gratitude pressed heavily on him. In his world of boardrooms and luxury, he had met countless powerful people, but never someone who risked everything for a stranger. Meanwhile, only a few blocks away, Marla sat on a worn park bench. Her scarf was still stained with soot, and her hands trembled slightly as she held a paper cup of coffee someone had given her. Around her, the city moved on, people rushing to work, children laughing, pigeons pecking at crumbs. She smiled faintly, watching the sunlight filter through the bare trees. She didn't know that her name was on every news channel, that strangers were searching for her, or that a millionaire's heart had been changed by what she had done. She just sat quietly, warming her hands and whispering a small prayer of thanks, for the boy's life, for the new day, and for the strange, fleeting peace that had settled in her soul. For the first time in years, Marla felt seen, not by cameras or crowds, but by life itself. And somewhere behind the roar of traffic, fate was already turning, leading two very different lives toward a meeting that would change them both forever.